Lulu, and welcome back to the More Money Podcast. I am your host, Jessica Morehouse, and I'm so excited to introduce my next guest, Rachel Rodgers, to the show. She is the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and USA Today bestseller of We Should All Be Millionaires. She's also the founder of Hello7, a multi-million-dollar company that teaches diverse entrepreneurs how to earn more money and build generational wealth. And today, she's coming on the show to discuss her new book with the next generation in mind called Future Millionaire, a young person's step-by-step guide to making wealth inevitable. Now, with soaring housing costs and student loan debt and inflation and everything else that's going on in the world right now, it feels like building wealth is out of reach for young people. And it's become clear that the traditional path to financial success, like going to university and buying a home and all the things that our parents and grandparents did, it's not working anymore, especially since some stats came out that 50% of U.S. parents are still supporting their adult children, and 1 in 3 adults under 43 aren't able to support themselves without parental assistance. So the question is all hope lost? Well, Rachel certainly doesn't believe so, hence why she wrote this guidebook on how to become financially independent as a young person in your, if you're a teenager or in your 20s just starting out, despite all of these statistics and everything that's going on. So I know you're going to love this episode. I found it super motivating and inspirational. So make sure to send it to someone who is just starting out on their journey, because they're going to get a lot out of this interview. And also very excited to share that I'm going to be giving away a copy of this book to a lucky winner. So make sure to listen to the end of this episode to learn how you can enter to win. Now we cover a lot of ground in this episode, I'm going to be quite honest. So with that, let's get to that interview with Rachel. Welcome, Rachel, to the More Money Podcast. I'm thrilled to have you on the show to discuss your new book, Future Millionaire. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So you came out with your first book, We Should All Be Millionaires, which I think is an incredible title. And now this new book, Future Millionaire, is really focused on youth, so young adults, or even I'd say teenagers, kind of just, starting to think about these things, because there's a lot, I feel like young people and kids are talking about this a lot more. I mean, I didn't think about money when I was a kid, I'll tell you that, or a teenager. It was like, I just need some money to go out with my friends, and that's the extent of it.
Yes.
But we're hearing a lot more from teenagers and, people going to university and things like that. They're more concerned about money than ever.
Yes.
It was that kind of the initial motivation to write this kind of book, because you were hearing this from younger people. This more like there's more concern than ever that I'll never have any money. I'll never be able to own a home. I'll never be able to move out of my parents' house. And all the financial advice out there does not apply to me.
Yeah. I mean, that is exactly right. There's even from like when I was growing up, I was a poor kid, right? So like I was very concerned about money because my family didn't have any, and I saw the results of that. But nowadays, you don't have to be low income or from a poor family to be struggling. So Gen Z, which is everybody from 13 years old to 27 years old right now, it is just not in a good place. They're doing worse off economically than their parents. Even if it looks like on paper they're making more money, they're actually like their buying power is a lot less because of inflation, because of student loans, because of housing and the cost of housing right now. And so what that means is they're never leaving their parents' homes, right? Like if you're the parent of a teenager or young adult, they're never leaving your house.
Sorry.
They're not getting off your couch. You're not going to get that podcast studio. You're not going to get that knitting room. That craft room is not happening. They're staying there forever, There's really scary stats that show that 50% of U.S. parents are still supporting their adult children, right? 1/3 of adults under age 43 can't get by without financial assistance. Can get by without financial assistance of their parents. So that means two-thirds need financial support to the age of 43. I'm 43. And I support it's the other way around. I support my mom. So it's tough going right now, and Gen Z just needs a new plan. They need a financial plan that is not the, go to college, get a good job, buy a house. That is no longer what's happening. And instead, they need a new plan that is actually going to work in these economic times and create that financial freedom for them.
Yeah, I've been seeing, especially with young people. I was just on the radio the other day talking about how, I think it was predominantly Gen Z and maybe some millennials that went to Coachella, and 60% used a buy now, pay later plan. And you're like, so that's concerning. To me, it signals that they're like, there's no point in saving because I don't have a future. So I'm just going to spend even on credit and just figure it out later or not figure it out. And that's kind of the sentiment I hear from young people, is they just don't think they have a future. So what did you really want to, I think that's like the resounding message of your book is like, you do have a future. And I as someone too, who's like approaching 40, I'm like, oh my God, I used to be disillusioned in my 20s because I'm, the Great Recession and stuff really, was how I entered the adult world, and it didn't seem like anything was possible. And then, oh, wow, life continues, and you do have to, you're going to probably live till your 80s or 90s, and you need a plan. So what did you really want to say to young people? And I guess, ultimately it's probably that, yeah, you do have a future and you do need to plan for it, but obviously the plan is going to be a little bit different.
Exactly. Yes, that is exactly right. And I also graduated from law school during a 2008 recession. So I graduated into a terrible, job market and, with $300,000 in student loans between undergrad and law school. Cause even with scholarships, that was my bill at the end. And so it was a scary time, but recessions come and go. And what I want, like, recessions don't kill dreams, right? We're still going to dream even if there's a recession. Regardless of what's going on in the economy, we are humans. We are going to dream for a better future. We are going to have a vision for our lives. And that's what I want for young people, is to have that $1 million dream, to have that dream, that vision for their lives. And when I say $1 million dream, it's not just about $1 million. It's about, like, what do you actually want for yourself? What do you envision for yourself? Right? Like, don't stop believing, don't stop dreaming. Just forget about the how and just dream of what you want for yourself, because you only get this one precious life, right? So go for it, like, have that dream. And then once you have that dream, it's like, okay, great. What is my plan to get me there? Right? And the plan, I feel like it can't just be, go to college, get a good job, because those good jobs are not enough anymore to live off of comfortably, right? I have people on my team who I know what they make. I pay them quite well with benefits, and they still live with their parents because they're just like, they don't want to give up enjoying their life. And so I'm like, let me tell you how to do it. Because I agree. I don't think that we should live in full on scarcity. I don't think that we should save everything and never enjoy any part of life, right? I do believe in enjoying your life. I don't believe in let's live in scarcity for 5 years until we can get to a place, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no. This generation is not going to do that. Like, they're just not, as you can see. They're going to go to Coachella. They're going to borrow the money and worry about it later,
Yeah.
And it's almost like they're sort of collectively saying, I don't care, right? Because they're just kind of like, this world has screwed me so much that, like, I don't care about having collections chasing me or not being able to pay debt, or I just don't care. I'm just going to live my life the best I can. And so the plan needs to be different. And so it's really about, like, okay, getting a job, but the job is really funding your ability to start a side hustle. You start a side hustle that feels like, I want them to have a side hustle that feels like a fun hobby that makes you money, though, right? Like a fun hobby that you enjoy that makes you money. And then from that side hustle, you amass enough that you can start investing, because the ultimate goal is always to separate your labor from your earnings, right? And be able to earn money when you're not laboring. That's actually what creates wealth. And so, like, this is a realistic path to get there. This is how I did it as well.
Yeah.
Because I think, having the money to invest and having the money to enjoy life from just your salary these days, it's not happening because of the conditions of the economy.
So yeah, that was a question I had. I had a side hustle out of necessity. I needed to have, well, it was like I had a side hustle and a second job and a full-time job. That was just to literally just scrape by. Do you feel like Gen Z, that generation, you can't, like, the dream of just having a 9 to 5 is kind of gone. You have to have something extra, unfortunately.
Yes, you do.
To make it work.
And I don't think it has to be unfortunate. I want us to reframe the energy around it. Like, because I feel like when I was building my side hustle and, now, I have it's grown into a full blown business. It was fun. It was creative. It was exciting. So, and if you choose wisely, and I give them the strategic plan on how to do it, and what's going to be right for them. I want them to choose something that's very aligned with their natural skill set, with their natural talents, that feels fun for them, so that you're making money and you're having a good time while you do it. And it feels exciting, versus feeling like a slog and exhausting, right? So it's like, let's be strategic about how we do this side hustling. And then also let's make sure it's very scalable, that we're choosing something that can generate a good amount of cash without enormous amounts of labor. And I think that's key. So the strategy behind the side hustle, it's not just any side hustle. It's like, what is the side hustle that is the right fit for you, that's aligned with your strengths, that will make you a good amount of money, that is not going to take an enormous amount of time. So there is a way to do that. And also I've helped thousands of people do exactly that. And so giving them the strategy of doing that is one of the key pieces.
And I guess the other kind of bonus of that is, ideally, maybe you would want that side hustle to be aligned with what you kind of envision your future career to be. And let's say you are a lawyer and you want to have a side hustle on top of that. Would it make the most sense to kind of use those skills that you already have? That's like, okay, we do I don't know. I have no idea about, I used to work for a law firm, but honestly, I didn't work with the lawyers in that capacity. I was in marketing, so I don't know what they were doing. But would it be like, well, this, it could be a temporary way to kind of, you don't have to be an entrepreneur. Not everyone needs to be an entrepreneur, but this could be another way just to make some extra money while you're just starting out, because that's the hardest part, is starting. But also it could build your skill set for your future career if you wanted to continue in like the legal industry. Like that's what I found for sure. It helped me with my side hustle, start out blogging. It helped me in my career with marketing, because I could say on my resume, look what I also do. This is above and beyond every other candidate that you're interviewing.
Yeah, I profile quite a few young people in the book and their stories of like becoming entrepreneurs, building wealth for themselves in various ways. And that's for sure a part of it, right? Like using that skill set that you might have from a current job and letting that parlay you into what your ultimate dream is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we live in a time of like Issa Rae, for example. She started her YouTube show, right? It was wildly successful. Then she got an HBO deal, right? Like, so it's kind of like create your own career, right? So you don't wait. If you want a talk show, put that talk show on YouTube right now, right? You don't wait to get a talk show deal. Show that you can do it and that you can amass an audience consistently. And literally, like, just from basically having ads, you can monetize on YouTube. And that's one way that you can make money. In the back of the book, I have 100 ways for young adults to make money. So I create a lot of options because I just want to get the wheels turning and show them like just the kinds of options that you could do to make some extra money. But there's lots of examples of that, of starting a blog, starting a YouTube channel, starting a podcast, starting some kind of content creation or media that is connected to what you ultimately want to do and how that can open doors. We see it with singers, we see it with actors, like, some of my favorite people that I follow on the internet wind up I'm like, wait a minute. I followed her for years. I didn't even know she was an actress. Like, that's how they got their acting deal, right? So it doesn't just have to be in those creative industries. I also profile a woman who I went to law school around the same time. We graduated around the same time, but she was blogging the whole time she was in law school about wine law. That was her specialty. She was like obsessed with it. And so she like did this whole deep dive into wine law. And then when she graduated, she had all these job offers that other people didn't have because she was known in that industry, right? And she made friends. And so I think that's part of it. That is a critical piece. It's like, get yourself known in this thing.
No, absolutely. I think that's amazing. And it's funny just even thinking back to, what I used to do, it was over 8 years ago now with lots of these lawyers, was trying to help them become authorities in whatever kind of segment of the law that they were in, and encouraging them to write blog posts, be on social media. Why would a journalist want to invite you on their show so you can get more attention? Well, you've got to put it out there that you know what you're talking about, and not just another lawyer that doesn't have a social media or an online presence. So really putting yourself out there, I think no matter what you want to do, I think is it is what it is. You got to be online. Like, there's not many people that I know, quite honestly, that don't have something to kind of put them out there so they can attract either employers or customers or something like that.
It's an opportunity, right? Like it is an opportunity. These tools are available to us. They were not available to our parents and, before then. So let's use them. And I think it's always reframing it, because sometimes we're just like, oh, that's a lot of work. And it's like, you gonna work no matter what. You're not getting out of the work, right? You can either do the work of trying to make ends meet or do the work of struggling financially. You're going to do some kind of work. So you might as well choose work that you enjoy, that's fun, that allows you to get the results you want.
And depending on what your job is, honestly, my last job, which was marketing for a big law firm, I could get my work done in like 3 hours, and the rest I honestly spent on my side hustle. So, I mean, not to say you should do that, but also, would they know? But Would they really know? Um, but I know there's a good chunk at the beginning of your book, which I really appreciate, talking about, instead of like jumping into the practical stuff, really kind of rewiring your brain and talking about the mindset component. Because I think initially when you maybe talk about some of these things, especially for young people who are maybe already disillusioned and don't think that they do have a future, or it's different for them, or it's really difficult. And all these things are true. It is difficult, and there's so many different barriers. And I really appreciate too that you talk about at the beginning of your book, let's talk about some of these actual barriers. I talk about this at length in my own book. Like if you're a woman, if you're a person of color, if you have a disability, if you're LGBTQ, it is going to be harder for you. And that is the system, and it is unfair. And we just need to talk about it. But that should not be the reason that you don't try anyway. I kind of want to start there. Why did you really want to make that clear right at the get-go? Because I know a lot of people may think, well, that's taking me out of the running to get to where we want to be because of these things.
Yeah, I mean, you could have that defeatist energy and say like, okay, well, it's over for me. No, it's not. There are so many people who have your exact identity and background and struggles, and they've made it happen. So you can too, and you just have to make the decision, right? Are you somebody who is going to be a victim of the system, or are you going to overcome it? And that's, and I know sometimes that triggers people and they're like, well, the system should be better. 100% I agree. But is it going to get better in our lifetime? I don't know. Maybe call me cynical. I doubt it. Right. And if it does get better, great. But I'm not going to wait for the government to come in and save me. And I'm not going to continue to struggle or not have what I want out of my life while I wait for the government to catch up with, the 21st century. I'm not going to do that. And instead, I'm going to take life by the reins and know that I can build it on my own. On my own terms. And I think I just want us to get out of this mindset that it has to be hard, it has to be miserable, it has to be, no, that's a story you're making up. That's actually not real. That's just the story you're telling yourself. And it might be your story of origin. Maybe my parents came home from work acting like work was the hardest thing in the world and so exhausting, and then when they didn't have work, they were very stressed out about not working. Right. And so, it's just like, let's change our mindset about it and have this different energy that we're approaching. And I think when we know we're building a dream and we know we're on a journey towards what we want, it's much more exciting than just like, well, I'm just going to work today. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. How do you make this shift? I know you do talk a lot about, changing your environment, changing the people that you surround yourself with, and just changing how you talk to yourself. Do you want to kind of expand on how, when you are already in that situation of like, I don't know if it's for me or I can do this, is it even possible for me to get to the other side of, instead of but say, no, yes, why not?
Yes.
Why not?
Right, exactly. I really wanted to introduce young people to thought work, which was so critical on my journey, which is just like analyzing your thoughts. The things that you think aren't actually fact, right? They aren't actually necessarily true. And so if the things in your head are just stories you're telling yourself, right? It's sometimes lies, right? Because we don't know the future, so we're just making it up, right? So like I could say, when I was young, I'm going to be a millionaire. I'm basically making that up. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I've decided that that's what I'm going to try for. That's what I'm going to work towards, right? It's much more helpful for me to say, I'm going to be a millionaire or I'm pretty rich, right? Than it is to say, I'm going to be broke for the rest of my life. When you say, I'm going to be a millionaire, you immediately feel like this lightness, this expansion, this possibility, excitement. Whereas when it's like, I'm going to be broke the rest of my life, when you have this doom and gloom sort of story in your head, it just makes you feel like quitting and giving up, and it gives you no energy. It makes you feel tired, right? And so I want to teach them, like, you are in control of your thoughts. Like, we have so much more power than we realize. And so I want to challenge people to step into your power, recognize the power you have to create a different future for yourself, right? And it starts with, what am I believing? What am I saying to myself? And let's change the tape playing. Because I used to have a really nasty mean girl in my head, especially in my late 20s, who was just constantly telling me I was ugly, I was not good enough, I was not smart enough, I was this, I was that. And one day, I got introduced to thought work, and I was just like, wow, I just became aware. It's almost like you're sort of outside of your body, just looking down and watching yourself be like, girl, why are you saying all those mean things? If your friends were to say this about themselves, you'd be like, don't say that, right? But then we say it to ourselves. So I really want to point out to them that, like, the tape playing in your head is not real. And let's actually interrogate those thoughts and say, is that fact? Is that true? What evidence do you have that that's not true? What evidence do you have that you're actually not hideous, right? And everyone doesn't hate you, right? Like,
Yeah.
so like, what evidence do you have? And like, have them actually collect stories from other people and stories from their own life and remembering certain things that have happened. That's evidence that actually you're not dumb, you're not ugly, you're not going to be broke forever, right? You have evidence that that's not true. And that evidence creates a new neural pathway that allows us to start thinking differently. So like I did this thought work for literally a couple of months. You have to do it consistently, like make it on your mind all the time. I used to use Post-it notes to like say nice things to myself when the old thoughts would come in. But literally after a couple of months, it's like the mean girl was gone. And I stopped thinking that way. And it was just like, it's almost like I didn't even notice she was gone until one day I was like, wait a minute, I don't talk like that to myself anymore.
Yeah.
And it was life changing. So that was one of the first, I always feel like, listen, whatever it is that you want, it starts with what's in your head, right?
Yeah.
If you don't believe it, it is not going to happen. So it's like, you have to get to a place where you believe it. What's stopping you from believing it? Great. Let's interrogate those thoughts and let's create new thoughts that are helpful, that are useful, that are, pushing us towards abundance, that are pushing us towards what we want, instead of just playing this mean girl tape in our head that's not getting us what we want.
Mm-hmm. And I guess to kind of nurture that kind of new mindset it's really key to make sure that you've created an environment that can nurture it, such as, again, who are you hanging out with, or what space are you in? Where did those thoughts originate from? Did they originate from people that you hang out with and you didn't even realize because it was just so foundational? Like, it was just like, it's always just been there. And then when you do kind of recognize, yeah, maybe I shouldn't hang out with so-and-so, or wow, my mother or whatever, she's very negative, and that's where I get that from. How can you then reorganize your environment? Because that can be very difficult, especially like, well, those are my friends from, forever, or, well, that's my family. I can't, cut them out. What is it? I know you talk about boundaries in your book. Is it about creating some healthy boundaries, or just, figuring out a plan that works for you?
Yeah. Well, I have to say, I think if you're committed to the life that you want for yourself, like sometimes you do have to cut people off. Like that is just the truth of the matter. Some people are just not good for you, even if they're allegedly loved ones, right? Sometimes they're not acting like people who love you. And the best thing we could do for ourselves is make them go away, right? Like basically stop spending time with them. That is not like obviously step one. That's the most extreme cases. But truly, like, for example, I had this with my own mother. Right. She used to be like, why can't you just go get a job like other lawyers? Right. Like, what I really love for you to is become a judge. She was like obsessed with me becoming a judge. And I'm like, Mom, there's no way I'm ever going to be a judge. I want you to let that go. It's not happening. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You should have had more kids. It's not going to be me. But anyway, she had her things that she wanted me to do, her vision for my life. And she would be sort of like discouraging about my entrepreneurial journey. And so I just stopped talking to her about it. I'm like, listen, my dreams will only be shared with people who are worthy of hearing them, and that includes, you need to be in a place where you can encourage me, where you can support me. Even if this is not something you want for yourself, being able to be encouraging and saying an encouraging word, that's all it takes, right? And she could not do that in that phase of her life. And so I was like, great, you don't get to hear about it. So I was building this whole business that I did not talk to her about at all. It was like a black hole. You know what I mean? She would ask me something, I'd give her a very surface answer and move the conversation on. We're not talking about this, So making sure I'm only, having those conversations with people who can be supportive of me and supportive of my dream, because we're holding these dreams. It's so fragile, right? Like our belief in it is so fragile as it is. We cannot be surrounded by people who are naysaying, because it's like our little hold that we have that we're trying to commit to this vision and this dream, it is going to fall apart if we're influenced by people who are like, you need to get a job. That's never going to work, right? Like in your ear all the time. So boundaries with people in your life is critical. And there are so many studies that show, that Jim Rohn quote, like the people that you spend the most time with is, who you are going to be. It is fact. There are various studies that I quote in the book that talk about, you hang out with kids who get A's, you could be a C student, you're going to start getting A's if you just hang out with the A kids, right? And vice versa. If an A kid starts hanging out with a group of C kids, they're going to start getting C's. They're going to start seeing their grades slip. So, and there's various different iterations of that same research that shows the influence is massive. So get you some friends, right, that are also entrepreneurial, that are also going after their dream, that are also looking for financial freedom, that have some ambition for themselves. Those are the people you want to spend time with. And if you don't have them in your life, go find them. Join a community, go to events, that's where I had to zero network when I started it. I went to communities, I went to events, I went to group programs. That's where I found my people that are still my friends today. We go vacation together, right? Like they're like uncle and aunts to my children, right? And so find your people, because that's what's you're all gonna go so much faster if you're doing it together versus if you try to do it alone.
That's what I wanted to talk about, because when I think about, younger people today, socialization is not as big of a skill as it is for older generations. And I think technology has really messed everything up. So I know for a fact, like, they're terrified to speak to someone on a telephone, and so, or in person. And so I think probably the prospect of creating a new community or starting from scratch, putting yourself out there, is terrifying. What kind of tips would you have to put yourself out there I remember as a millennial, like when I was in my 20s, and at the time I wanted to be a filmmaker, and putting myself out there, going to film events by myself. And it was terrifying. And everyone's like, wow, I can't believe at 25 you're doing that. It got easier, but also I had social skills where I think a lot of younger people are playing catch up, quite honestly. Because I didn't have social media, thank God. Honestly, when I think back, I'm like, thank God I didn't have social media.
Right, I know. I'm grateful too, but I also think, like, okay, social media is a tool that you can use to make that happen. So could you take people that you feel like you have something in common with and say, let's meet up online, let's meet up offline, right, and connect in real life. So you can form your own communities around things that you're interested in or things that you're trying to do. And you can create those communities just on the internet and then take it offline. So you have those like real life connections. I also bring a wing person with you. Sometimes if I'm nervous, or my best friend, he might be going somewhere he's a little nervous about. I mean, he's a social butterfly, but he still has places where he's like, I'd really love a wing woman with me. And I'm like, okay, I'll go with you. And so like having a person that you trust, that is supportive, go with you to some of those places can be part of it. And then some of it is just like, we can do hard things. Okay. So like we can show up to places, just make sure you're showing up to the right room. Don't walk into a room where they're going to discourage you or discount you because you're young or whatever it is. Like show up to places where you feel alignment values wise, and then you're going to find your people. Because if you're drawn to, an event that is like all about like women in business being successful, right? You're going to find a lot of women in that room who want to help you, right? And want to support you because they were young women too one day, right? So put yourself in the right room with people in communities that you feel alignment with, that you have something in common with. And then you're going to walk in and make friends like that. I know I'm a loud mouth and I talk a lot, but when I walk into a room full of strangers, I'm the type that'll sit in the corner quiet until somebody walks up to me. I don't go introduce myself. I'm not that kind of extrovert.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm probably more of an ambivert, but I still, when I've walked into those kinds of rooms, people will come up to me and say, just ask me a question. The other thing is, little things like finding something on them that you like, that you can give a compliment, like, oh, I love your scarf, or I love your earrings. Where'd you get those? And then it just sparks the conversation. Instead of asking them, what do you do? Sometimes that's very dry. So just finding a point of commonality, like, oh, I see you're wearing a shirt from blah, 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 or you have a sticker from whatever. I love that band, right? Like finding some point of commonality that you can just see visually and then spark a conversation from there. I think that's part of it. But honestly, and there's more tools and more strategies in the book, but we have to build community, especially even in the age of AI. We're inundated with information, but not community, right? And that's what we need more than anything else.
Yeah, it seems like technology is trying to take the person out of the world
now.
It's like it really freaks me out, but I try not to think about it. On this, you gave some really great, and there are some really great tips in your book. But real quick, I want to know when it comes to networking, because again, this is a really difficult skill, I think, for people to learn, especially young people. What is something they shouldn't do? What is something they're like, I see this a lot, and it's always just like, oh God, it's going to make it harder for you to really connect with people.
Yeah. Well, I think you want to bring your full self, but you also don't want to say too much too soon. You know what I mean? Like you don't
overshare.
Don't overshare. Don't share every struggle you've ever had in life. Like when you just met someone within the first 5 seconds. Yeah. Because if you think about it, that's what we're doing online. People are sharing like, oh my God, right? Really personal information, and they feel really deeply connected personally online, even though they've never met you. Because even this happened to me as an author. I wrote my book, and then my book came out during the pandemic. And so there was no book tour. It was a virtual book tour. Then when I went to my first conference after, and people were like screaming my name in the street, I'm like, what the hell just happened? I was like so freaked out. And then they're like, coming up to me, sharing their story and saying how much my book meant to them. And I was like, oh, I just realized I just shared my whole life story with all y'all. So I kind of forgot I did that.
Yeah.
So people feel like they have that deep connection. And I think when you meet them in person, I don't know, maybe just like give it a second, like just connect, and find some commonality, find some things to talk about, but maybe not go so deep immediately. Cause sometimes that can be off-putting.
That is a lot. Yeah, I didn't even think of that. That's true. And I'd say the other thing that is always off-putting when I meet someone new at, say, like a conference or something like that, is when they just start talking about themselves because they think that is how networking is.
No.
It's like, you got to ask me some questions. You got to listen.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Also, don't try to sell me anything when I just met you.
Oh my God, yeah. Please don't be like, how can we? Oh, and I have certain trigger words, such as, like, they're not real trigger words, but like synergy or collaborate. Can't stand.
Don't use
collaborate, which is such a nice positive word, but I'm like, it's used in so many negative, like, oh, we should collaborate. I'm like, that means you just want something.
Yeah, exactly. Like corporate buzzwords. No, I think for sure, be real, be yourself, just be friendly, connect with people, don't try to sell them anything, don't try to get
don't try to make a deal during that one first conversation.
Yes, it's like trying to take someone home when you just met them at a bar, right? Like you get their phone number, have a couple phone calls, go on a couple dates. You know what I mean? Like, slow it down.
It's not about we're not trying to make a deal. That's for sure. Now, of course, in your book, as you should, you talk about some of the practical things and especially some of the money things, and I think that's. Even though it's funny, it's like it's never been easier to learn about personal finance and money management and investing, especially compared to like just 15 years ago when I got started as a blogger. But it's still not easy. There's, again, like you said, there's so much information. It's overwhelming. And now you also have to, cherry pick, well, what is good and what's bad advice and what should I follow? What should I not do? What were some of the key things? Because, obviously you're like, there's a lot that you packed into this book, but you're like, these are the key things that I want young people to know about how to set themselves up financially so they can create that foundation so they can take care of themselves. What were some of those things that you really wanted to make sure that they knew right at the start?
Yeah. Well, one of them is making sure they're paying attention to their money. Like that's like kind of step one. I don't think we realize how much we just let things happen to us and just
everything's so automatic, tap, whatever. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And we're not paying attention. So literally looking at their money. So one of the things that I recommend they do is something that I call money church, right? Which is not worshiping your money, but it's looking at your money. It's basically having an appointment with yourself once a week. Mm-hmm. We're going to look at your money. It's money church. It's sacred.
You could be every Sunday if you want.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love that
appointment where you're going to look at your money and say, what happened? And you're also going to assess, how do I feel about the decisions I made related to money, right? Not just like, let me dollars and cents add up numbers. We're not just doing math. We're also saying, how do I feel about those decisions? Do I still stand by them? Do I want to return that thing I bought? Right? Like, where am I at right now with my decisions that I made? So it's like looking at what's happened and also, what's coming up, right? So just prepared, right, for your money, just looking at it. And then after looking at that, then the other thing I want them to do is come up with ways to earn more money. So like once a week, I want you coming up with 25 ways, like just brainstorm to make money, right? To make extra money. Because part of it is just, you're not going to execute all of them. Some of these ideas are going to be terrible, but you're training your brain to think creatively about money-making opportunities. Because there are open doors all around us and we're just not seeing them. It's like a hidden door. It's like, girl, walk through the door. It's right there.
It's honestly never been easier, in my personal opinion. It's never been easier to find some way that, especially from home, from the comfort of your own home, that you can figure out a way to make money. Again, when I was in my 20s, I had to have a physical second job that I had to go to. And then I was blogging, but I was not making money. I think the only way, I think I maybe made like a couple $50 here and there writing for other websites, but it's not like it is now where there's so many platforms, there's so many ways that you can find a way to make some extra money if you want to. And like, it is critical to start those habits, but also start saving that money and investing it in your 20s so it compounds when you're older.
Exactly. So teaching them to pay attention to their money and like having a system for how you pay attention to your money is like step one, right? And then on top of that, I want them to be investing, right? And just start really small. That's what I did. I just started with really small amounts of money. I was like, I know everyone says I should do it. This feels scary to me though. So I'm just going to put a small amount in and then I'm just going to watch it. And then the next month I put a small amount and watch it. And that's what I did. I started with like a couple $100 each month because I started like in my 30s. So I was well into my 30s before I ever started to invest. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to devote a whole chapter to how I did it. Because, and also demystifying it, making it as simple as possible in as simple language as possible, and just like, here's exactly how I did it, like step by step. Because I remember somebody was like, you need to invest. And I'm like, where do you go to invest? I don't even know.
Yeah, they're like, just invest in this. You're like, well, what is that?
How do I buy that
mean?
stock? I didn't even know.
Where is it?
Yeah, exactly. I didn't even know how to like log on to Fidelity or Charles Schwab or whatever the website was. And like, I had to have a friend actually show me how to do it because I'm like, I don't even know. So I just assumed they know nothing, which I knew nothing. My parents didn't invest because they had no extra money, right? Like they barely had savings. They barely could get by. So they didn't do this. And so I wanted them to have the skills to do that and just start and just watch it grow. Right. Mm-hmm. And then as it continues to grow, right, like then you can invest more and more, which is what I did. So, and I really encourage, especially when you're young, what I suggest is like having 30 days of savings, like 30 days of comfortable living and be growing your investments. Right. I want them putting more of their money into investments rather than savings. I have friends who have 8 months, a year, like 2 years worth of savings. And I'm like, girl, put that in the market. You're killing me.
There's a point where it's too much cash.
Yes.
But, I guess, I'm always of the mind that's, I do always say 3 to 6 months of your living expenses. I think it depends on your particular situation. Do you have a stable job or not a stable job? If you're self-employed, you probably want a little extra cash just because there's always those lean months. I get that every summer and it always shocks me. And I'm like, oh, wait, no, it's summertime. That's just literally the nature of my particular business. But yeah, it's important to have a cap on, okay, we got enough cash. Now we need to move forward for the next step of investing. And that, like you said, it's very scary when you're at the start. Like it was the scariest thing I did I started in my mid-20s, but I did not know what the heck I was doing. So I didn't feel like fully like I was investing to my late 20s. And it was terrifying because you're afraid of losing your money, especially like as we're talking about now, it's April. What's going on in the stock market is terrifying a lot of young people who thought they were going to get started. Oh, I'm going to start. And they're like, I don't know if this is a good time because everything's like up and down. What should I do?
I always feel like I don't care if it's up or down. If it's down, that means the stock market's on sale. Buy it now. Because you know what's going to happen? What's not going to happen is that all of these billionaires are suddenly going to have no money. That's not going to happen. So that's basically your insurance. The fact that they have influence on the government, which is horrific, but it's like, okay, well, this is the one upside. So let's take it. You know what I mean? So I honestly, I was completely unbothered by the up and down of the stock market. And I'm just I'm like, this is a moment in time. It's exactly. I didn't even look. I did not even log in to look and see the drop. But I'm in a part of a group chat of another group where like everybody was freaking out. And I'm like, please don't sell, y'all. Don't do it.
You're the one who's like, please don't.
Calm down.
Look at it. Calm down.
Yes.
And good for you because guess what happened? It went way down. Everyone thought it was the apocalypse and then went back up. So just don't touch your money.
Yes. That's why it pays to look at the history. And that's one of the things that I point out and lay out in the book. Yes. Like you've got to look at the history of the stock market. And when you look at it over time, stop thinking about today or this month or next month, right? And look at it over years and decades. And you can see that the movement is consistent in a positive way, right? So does that mean it's guaranteed? No, but so nothing about building wealth is guaranteed. And that's one of the other things that I teach them is building wealth is not built on hard work. I know we like to think that our parents told us that. It's a lie, right? There are plenty of hardworking people that have no money, right? So it's not hard work. It's hard work helps, right? But risk is part of it. Taking a risk is part of building wealth. If you're not taking a risk with putting yourself out there for a raise, right? Putting yourself out there for maybe a commission-based job where you have the opportunity to get performance-based bonuses, right? If you're not putting yourself out there for entrepreneurship, side hustling, investing, you are not going to build wealth, period, right? Like that's literally, unless you've inherited it from someplace, I don't know another way to build wealth other than to take risks, calculated strategic risks, but risk is part of it.
And I always tell people that, I know, I'm like, yes. Because honestly, I look back, there's definitely a point in my 20s where I saw, and I'm sure lots of young people will come at a point of what direction, like you're at that crossroads, the fork in the road. And you can do the safe route, which you think is safe, but there's actually risk in not taking risk. right? You could be leaving, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars on the table by taking the quote unquote safe route, by not taking risks. And that's for me, when I kind of recognized that, when I was, getting more into personal finance and learning about investing and things like that, that seemed more risky than me putting myself out there, trying to start a business of my own, and failing or not failing. And I was much more comfortable actually like giving it a go, giving my best shot, than looking back and regretting never trying. Because as you also probably know, life, especially once you hit 30, it just goes so quickly.
It really does.
The decade goes by like that, and you're like, oh shoot. So you want to start as soon as possible.
Yeah, I mean, one of the first chapters in the second half of the book, where it really gets into all of the different tactical, strategic things that people need to do, the first chapter is devoted to take stock of you, because you are your greatest asset. And so that's what I want people to be in touch with, is like, you can turn your skill set and your talents into money at any time, right? So like, take stock of yourself, take personality assessments, think about your childhood and what people asked you for. Like, what are those things that you are naturally good at, your natural talents that you can monetize? Because if you're not monetizing them, you're absolutely leaving money on the table, right? Because this is your greatest opportunity to build wealth. Is like, my report card used to say, Rachel talks too much. Now Rachel gets paid to talk, right? So like, this is how that works. You know what I mean? So it's like, what are those things that your skill set, if you can figure out how to create a side hustle, or you go into a career where this is your natural genius, the talent you were born with, and you can then double down on it and get better at it, right? Like, that's where you have the opportunity to be world class. And then that's where you have the opportunity to make the most, earn the most, right? Because you can be one of the best that does that specific thing. And then that's part of I want people to understand, like, it's not just dollars and cents. It's also you. Like, what are ways that you could, so for example, if there's a downturn and you need to make extra money, what skills do I have that I can then go sell and turn into money, right? That's part of your financial plan, right? That's part of your safety net. It's not just the cash in your savings account or what you have invested. It's also your ability to turn, a skill set into a cash flow in 30 days, right? Like, that's what I want them to have.
Important, especially now, because I know the job market, in both Canada and the US is kind of like up and down. But also, there's a lot of people I know in my personal life that their partner or they were laid off.
Yes.
And I know there's some people who are freaking out right now, and some they're like, okay, well, I used to do consulting. I guess maybe I could do a bit of that. So
yes.
I'm again, being that millennial who experienced the recession, I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? So I'm always ready. And especially when COVID happened, I was getting into more public speaking, and then COVID happened and no events were happening. I'm like, okay, well, let's really test things out, and let's lean into this skill set or this opportunity and this thing, and let's just try something different. I think no matter if you're an entrepreneur or you're an employee, having different things that you can do, or, what if I have a friend who has been working in one industry for years and years and years. She just got laid off. She's like, I think it's time for me to take my skills and work in a completely different industry. But because she actually used to be a blogger and have side hustles and stuff, she's not super worried about it, because she's had to pivot before. And so it's less of a, oh my gosh, my life is over now. So it's really important to, just be prepared and be flexible, which is, no one likes change and no one likes being flexible, but it's important. It's vital in this day and age, I'd have to say. Now, the one kind of thing, since we've been talking about do this, a lot of, especially young people, about everybody is probably concerned about, okay, but how do I make sure I don't get burnout? How do I take care of myself? I know you have a portion of your book talking about, well, millionaires actually are very into self-care. What does that mean in terms of just like, not just like a face mask and a bubble bath? What does actual self-care mean to take care of you and future you?
Yeah, I mean, I do bubble baths occasionally. But,
I love those too, but not
a face mask is
solve all your problems.
That ain't it. Okay. Yes. So it's kind of like, how can I start my day in a way that sets me up for success, where I could be my best, where I could do my best work, that my mindset is sharp, right? And so that focus on self-care can be things like, okay, I'm not going to go out and drink on a Thursday night when I have important meetings Friday, right? That kind of, it's like just making decisions that, it's like you're prioritizing how you feel. So it's like, I'm going to go to bed earlier. I'm not going to doom scroll until, 1 a.m. Instead, I'm going to put my phone over, like, I just literally put it on my desk, not on my nightstand. And that one thing is like, I refuse to get up. So I guess I'm not scrolling. And then what I do instead is like, I lay in bed at night and I envision right? What the future that I want for myself, and like walk through it happening. And then I fall asleep to that. Like I've been doing that for years, you know? And so like just small things like that. So really, I think it's all about how you start your day. And I start my day by going for a walk and nobody talk to me because I just need, I know I talk a lot, but I love talking
No, my
to
husband
people.
does that actually.
Yes.
That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah. I get up every morning early and just go for a walk and just be outside. And it's beautiful. And a lot of times I'll listen to something super positive, or sometimes lately I've just been like, listening to my own thoughts. You know, I'm like, I just want to listen to the birds chirp. And just kind of like not be doing something productive, right? Like I'm walking, that's productive, but I don't want to be like figuring something else out.
Gotta do this.
Exactly.
It's like, just live, just go for a walk and ground yourself a bit.
Yes. And so I go for a walk. Sometimes I'll listen to a meditation or something like that. I come back and then I hang out with my kids. I get them ready. Young people, if they don't have kids, they don't have to worry about that part. And then I come back, have breakfast, and then I'm like ready to go for my day. You know, I'll either walk, and then some days I do strength training in the morning. So just having that morning time and having my morning ritual where I take care of myself and I prioritize that. And that means doing that workout in the morning means that I'm tired at night. So it's like, if you want to go to bed earlier, the trick is go work out. After you've worked out, you're like, I'm exhausted. Once you take a shower, it's done. You're finished, you know?
Yeah.
And then you could also take supplements. Like I take magnesium at night, you know, it helps me to relax. Of course, you got to make sure that that's right for you. But, you know, I take a supplement and relax. So it's like sleep. You know, people are always like face mask, spa, all this crap. There's 17-step skincare routine. I'm like, girl, I ain't got time for that. Like I barely want to do the 3 steps. I barely want to do my 3-step, you know, routine. Yeah. I do take care of my skin, but it's like, if it's not 3 steps or less, it's not happening. You know?
I agree. I don't have time for more than 3.
Oh my God, forget it. Like I'm fighting for my life to get those 3 out, you know, once I'm tired. So, but it's like the basics, y'all. Eat well, right? Don't eat fried crap all day and then expect to be energized to get work done. Like if you're going to have fried chicken for lunch, you're going to be exhausted, right? So like, need a nap. Like vegetables, protein, sleep. Don't drink all the time. Like it's like so simple, right?
It's
like
simple, but we're not doing it.
We're not doing it, right? It's like, why are we not doing it? Community, right? So if you're like, I need more discipline, the secret to not having discipline is just get friends that are already doing it. So if you have friends and people around you who are like into their fitness and going for walks every morning, you're like, okay, I'm just going to piggyback and go with y'all, you know? And then it's sort of like you borrow their discipline, you borrow their encouragement, right? So doing that, like going out with friends, and I see that they always order like salads and protein and stuff. And I'm like, I'm going to start ordering that. And I just started eating like them, right? My friends who are really taking good care of themselves. So I like borrowed their discipline. I borrowed their habits. And that's what happens. You're influenced by the people around you. So get some people around you who are already taking good care of themselves, who already go to bed. Like don't have the night owl friends, because you're not going to be energized. They're staying up till 3 a.m. That's not going to work for you.
No. Oh my gosh. I mean, I feel like I could talk to you forever. This was so great. And it honestly, I'm hopeful. I'm really excited for the next generation, because with the bad, there's a lot of positive. There's a lot of good. And I feel like especially this generation, they get activated. They speak their minds. They set those boundaries. They are out on the streets protesting when they want to protest. There's a lot of it. Like, I'm really excited for this young people and what they can do, because even though this world sometimes feels like a dark place, and I feel like, honestly, for the last 5 years, it's been uncertain times. And I'm getting sick of that. It's like, I know, I get it.
Unprecedented times forever.
Unprecedented times. Like, geez Louise, we need a break. But I feel young people they are the I know this is cheesy. They are the future, and they're going to make the change that they want to see. And I'm really excited. As someone who's a little bit older, but I see them coming up. I'm so happy and excited for them. And I think this is such an incredible book to really get them started, so they can make that plan, start thinking differently, and take action, and have that, future millionaire. I love that future millionaire or pre-millionaire, pre-rich. That's absolutely it. You're just at the start. Don't compare yourself to someone who's already where you want to be, because they're probably like a decade older, or they've been doing all these things that you weren't doing. So it's just about starting where you're starting and get going. So thank you so much, Rachel, for anything to leave the listeners with that you just want, we didn't touch on.
Yeah, well, one thing I want to say for sure is that, young people, anybody listening, you have all the ingredients already. And it's just about mixing them up into a different recipe, right? So like the same way that you demand things from our government, demand some things from yourself, about your own future and recognize your power to create that. Recognize your power to make that happen. You have it. So that's one thing I want them to know. And then the other thing I want them to know, if they go to futuremillionairebook.com, they buy 2 physical copies of the book, you get 2 registrations for Money Camp. So I'm going to be teaching a live course for 5 days in May. And so for 5 days, I'm going to be teaching lessons from the book and doing live Q&A. And it's completely free after you buy 2 physical copies. So if you go to futuremillionairebook.com, you get all the details for that.
Incredible. And just for anyone who's, this is the first time they're finding out about you, tell them where they can find you online and any other kind of resources that you want them to know about.
Yeah. So my company is called Hello7. So you can go to hello7.co to hang out with me and see all the things that we're doing. Listen to the Hello7 podcast, where you can find on YouTube, Spotify, all the places. And then you can come hang out with me on Instagram. I'm at Rachel Rodgers ESQ.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Rachel, for spending some time with me and coming on the show. It was such a treat talking to you.
Thank you so much for having me.
And that was my episode with Rachel Rodgers. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Make sure to check her out at rachelrodgers.com and also her company's website, hello7.co. You can also find her on Instagram and Twitter at Rach Rodgers ESQ. You could also find her on YouTube at Hello7, on TikTok at Rachel_Rodgers. And of course, she's Rachel Ann Rodgers on LinkedIn. And make sure to grab a copy of her new book, Future Millionaire, as well as her first best-selling book, We Should All Be Millionaires. And like I mentioned, I'm going to be giving away a copy of Future Millionaire. All you have to do if you want to enter to win is visit jessicamorehouse.com/contest. And there's going to be her book and a bunch of other authors that have been featured on this season of the show. I'm giving away all of their books or their recent books that have been featured on this season. So make sure to go to jessicamorehouse.com/contest to enter to win. And in case you don't know, maybe you're new to the podcast, I also have a book. Speaking of books, it is called Everything But Money. It is also a bestseller, and you can grab your copy now at jessicamorehouse.com/book or any bookseller. And, if you want to also get some free book extras, there's lots of videos, some audio, some worksheets. Again, jessicamorehouse.com/book is where you can find those things. All you have to do is, you can either purchase them for like $10 or you can get them for free if you just give my book a rating or review and give me a little screenshot. But all the information is at jessicamorehouse.com/book. And also don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Jessica I. Morehouse and the podcast at More Money Podcast, because I've been very busy just documenting what I've been up to, my book tour, just what's been going on with the book and just all these other things that you may want to just stay in the loop of. And also, in case you don't know, you may want to watch the podcast if you are just listening. You may not know, but this is a video podcast. Every single episode is on my YouTube channel. jessicamorehouse.com/YouTube is where you can find basically the past couple seasons have been on YouTube. So you can check that out. You can check out this episode and see me talk to Rachel if you want to. Well, that's it for me. Thank you so much for listening or watching the More Money Podcast and supporting me and this show as we get very close to our 10-year anniversary. Very, very exciting. We're going to have to figure out what to do to celebrate. But I will be back here next week with some more episodes for you to enjoy. See you then. The More Money Podcast would not be possible without the amazing talents of video editor Justice Carrar and podcast producer Matt Rideout, who you can find at mravcanada.com.